Are you one of those people that put everyone else first and save you for last? You know what? It's not wrong to put yourself first. And that is what we're going to talk about in this next book. It is written by Robert Ringer and it is titled Looking Out for Number One: How to Get from Where You Are Now to Where You Want to Be in Life. Hello, I am Daisy, your hostess. Please do sit back because I believe you deserve to put yourself as number one. Perhaps you, like me, have been guilty of putting others first. And then there's nothing left for you. And then sometimes you wonder why some people say, well, why can't you get this done? Why can't you get that done? And you're like in shock, like, well, wait a minute. I've been doing all of this for you. But then there's no gratitude for it. There's no reward that you actually took the time to put everybody else first. And then I have found out that as I started putting myself first, guess what? I started getting the respect. And it's like others had to do for themselves, as it should have been all along. So I'm really excited to see what else I can learn for myself from this author that might be new and that might be helpful. And this particular book appeared as the New York Times #1 bestseller, and it is available free on his website at Robert Ringer, where you can find other great books by the same author. So let's get started on some of the pearls of wisdom that Robert Ringer brings for us in this particular book, so that you too can begin putting yourself first and winning big in life. Looking Out for Number One by Robert Ringer. This book is in the public domain. How to get from where you are now to where you want to be. Dedicated to the hope that somewhere in our universe there exists a civilization whose inhabitants possess sole dominion over their own lives, where every individual has the ability to recognize and the courage to acknowledge reality, and where governments, as we know them, do not exist. Introduction. Given that the term looking out for number one has been so distorted by an army of media people who never took the trouble to read the book, I would like to clearly define it at the outset. Looking out for number one is the conscious effort to make rational decisions that lead to the greatest amount of happiness over the long term, so long as the actions stemming from those decisions do not involve the use of force or fraud against anyone else. In simpler terms, looking out for number one begins with the belief that you have a moral right to take actions aimed at giving you the greatest amount of pleasure and least amount of pain, provided your actions do not violate the rights of others. It goes without saying that someone else's ego being harmed by your happiness or success, or his experiencing deep emotional pain as a result of his uncontrolled envy of you, does not equate to aggression. Such an unfortunate mindset stems from the afflicted person's own neurosis, and by no stretch of the imagination is it your job to spend your waking hours trying to heal sick minds. Unless, of course, you're a psychologist, in which case I would suggest you would be a lot more productive if you would have the neurotic individual in question call your receptionist for an appointment. It's also important to understand that the idea of looking out for number one is neither narcissist nor hedonistic, because focusing on personal happiness does not preclude your being kind, charitable, or civic-minded. Nor does it prevent you from being a team player or building meaningful, enduring relationships. On the contrary, all these and more can result in long-term happiness for you. An important tenet of looking out for number one, however, is that you have no moral obligation to submit to playing the role of a sacrificial lamb whose interests, goals, and happiness are always subordinated to the interest, goals, and happiness of everyone with whom you come in contact, particularly those whom you do not count among your friends or loved ones. Trying to please everyone is a well-known formula for unhappiness. Clearly then, not only does your achieving happiness and success not in any way harm others, it also puts you in a position to make constructive contributions to those closest to you and, through the invisible hand of the marketplace, even people you will never even meet. Footnote. Because I find it cumbersome to use hybrid pronouns such as his, hers, and am opposed to debasing the English language by mixing singular nouns and pronouns with plural pronouns such as they, I have, for the sake of convenience only, chosen to use the masculine gender throughout this book in most instances where the neuter has not been employed. Chapter 1. Looking out for number 1. As stated in the introduction, whenever I use the term looking out for number 1, I am referring to the conscious effort to make rational decisions that lead to the greatest amount of happiness over the long term, so long as the actions stemming from those decisions do not involve the use of force or fraud against anyone else. Long-term thinking is a critical aspect of looking out for number 1 because short-term pleasure can be self-destructive if not weighed against long-term consequences. If, for example, one engages in armed robbery, the fruits of his crime may bring him short-term pleasure. However, the long-term result, hiding and or incarceration, is sure to bring pain that will far outweigh his short-term gains. It is self-evident that thinking only short-term is not a rational way to live one's life. I bow to Ayn Rand on the subject. A rational man does not live his life short-range and does not drift like a bum pushed by the spur of the moment. It means that he does not regard any moment as cut off from the context of the rest of his life, and that he allows no conflicts or contradictions between his short-range and long-range interests. He does not become his own destroyer by pursuing a desire today which wipes out all his values tomorrow. Knowingly or unknowingly, everyone tries to make decisions that lead to more pleasure and less pain, but such decisions are not always rational. To make rational decisions, you have to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. If you wish to consciously and consistently make wise pleasure, pain decisions, it is necessary to lift your consciousness to a high level of awareness. This means elevating your thought processes to a point that gives you the capacity to act out of choice, your choice, a majority of the time. While the high point on your mental awareness meter is taking action based only on your own rational choices, the low point is taking action based on what others choose for you. If you're in the habit of not basing your actions on rational choice, you're out of control. And if anyone out of control is dangerous both to himself and those around him, in the event this describes your way of life, today is the best day to begin taking steps toward curing this self-destructive habit. Looking out for number 1 is a transforming philosophy that can bring about dramatic changes in your life. When practiced honestly and consistently, it will give you the power to replace financial pressure with financial stability. It will result in warm, meaningful relationships in place of never-ending conflicts with people who bring mostly pain into your life. It will give you more free time in place of a harried life in which you never seem to have enough time for anything. It will give you a clear mind in place of a mind cluttered and stressed. On a broader scale, looking out for number 1 will lead you to the realization that life is worth living and that it can and should be a pleasant, meaningful, exciting experience. The natural offspring of this discovery are feelings of self-control and self-esteem, which, in turn, perpetuate a positive state of mind, and an action-oriented life. Consciously or unconsciously, everyone's main objective in life is to be as happy as possible. But what exactly is happiness? Wise men have been arguing over the definition of this elusive term since the beginning of recorded history. I choose to define happiness in simple terms: one's state of mind when he is experiencing pleasure. If happiness is the main objective, then all other objectives are really only a means to accomplishing happiness. Therefore, to the degree our subjectives are rational, and to the degree we achieve them, we tend to experience what we refer to as happiness. It's also important to recognize that there is no such thing as absolute happiness. Happiness comes in degrees. You can be happier today than yesterday, twice as happy yesterday as you were the day before, and hope to be much happier tomorrow than you are today. The degree of your happiness at any given moment will depend upon the rationality of your decisions and actions, as well as the success you have in achieving your subjectiveness. The more rational your decisions and actions, the more often you will experience results that lead to happiness. Your weight and balance happiness scale. Your cerebral computer, commonly referred to as the brain, contains a biological computer chip I like to think of as your weight and balance happiness scale. This remarkable scale automatically weighs every known alternative available to you at any given time and chooses the one it believes will result in the greatest amount of happiness for you. The only problem with your weight and balance happiness scale is that it sometimes malfunctions, i.e., it doesn't always ascertain the facts correctly and therefore does not always produce decisions that are in your long-term best interest. So, as with any computer, it's only as good as the operator who feeds it information. If you feed your weight and balance happiness scale irrational thoughts, it will make irrational decisions. That's why there is no escaping the reality that it's up to you to keep your scale functioning properly. It will never fail to make a decision for you, and each decision will be what it believes to be in your best interest at any particular point in time. Even the failure to make a decision is, in fact, a decision, the decision not to take action. The batting average of your weight and balance happiness scale is directly related to your level of awareness and your determination to take only rational actions. But there's another factor that comes into play with your weight and balance happiness scale. Even if we all exercised good reasoning powers before taking action, each of us would seek happiness in our own way. Some pursue happiness by becoming martyrs, others by being well-read and knowledgeable on a variety of subjects, and still others by accumulating great wealth. The differences in our pursuits are due to our varying ideas about what happiness is, i.e., what leads to our experiencing the greatest amount of pleasure. Of and by itself, this divergence of views is not a bad thing. It's only when others try to tell you what should make you happy that problems begin to appear. And when that occurs, you do yourself a great disservice if you believe that the opinions of others should be binding on you. How can you be certain that your weight and balance happiness scale is functioning properly? The pleasure-pain compartments of your brain will always give you an easy-to-read printout, i.e., you will either feel happy or unhappy. The happier you are, the more your scale is in balance. The unhappier you are, the more your scale is telling you that something about your thoughts and actions are out of sync. The greater the happiness you hope to achieve, the greater the price you should expect to pay. It is, of course, up to you to decide the price you're willing to pay, but it's wise to decide on that price before taking action. Aside from paying the price necessary for a better life, your only other option is inaction, i.e., accepting things as they are and living with the frustration, conflict, and pain that make life more of a burden than a celebration. Unfortunately, most people choose inaction because inaction is the easiest alternative. In effect, the choice they make through their inaction is to avoid relatively mild, short-term pain in exchange for a lifetime of dull, chronic pain, and dull, chronic pain is a virtual living death. Why worry about life after death if you're not living this one? The wisest long-term choice is to commit to the effort, no matter how difficult it may be, to take positive, rational action every day of your life. This may mean making radical changes in your lifestyle, occupation, or place of residence. Such changes, of course, should be made only after careful reasoning convinces you they are warranted, because much of what it takes to make you happy may be right under your nose. Or, as an unknown author once put it, the bird in the hand looks awfully good after it's already left your hand. Winning. Is winning necessary to happiness? Since happiness is a result of accomplishing a series of sub-objectives, winning in areas that are most important to you is bound to make you happier than losing. However, if a person's sub-objectives are a result of bad choices, or if he has too many important sub-objectives, the result can be frustration and disappointment. While the problem of choosing inappropriate sub-objectives usually stems from irrational thinking, having too many sub-objectives is often a result of buying into the generally accepted notion that winning at everything is admirable. When people say he's a winner, what they usually mean is that a person is an overachiever. He's competitive conjures up images of a tense individual who never takes time to relax, who tends to go all out whether he's negotiating a business deal or playing a weekend game of golf. However, when I think of winning, I don't necessarily equate it to the highest score. For example, your objectives when playing tennis on a Saturday afternoon might be to relax and enjoy the company of another person. If at the end of your match you're relaxed and feel as though you've had a good time, then you've won. Unless it's competitive tennis, whether or not you end up with the winning score should not be the critical issue. Winning merely for the sake of winning elevates it to an end in itself, and thereby relegates the main objective, happiness, to a position of lesser importance. That's often the predicament of the person whose main focus is on making money. He gets so caught up in accumulating wealth that he forgets to take the time to enjoy it. That's why it's wise to put a lot of thought into deciding which sub-objectives are most important to your happiness. Then set your priorities accordingly. Don't place an equal value on becoming a great tennis player, a renowned socialite, a successful business person, a gourmet cook, and a top-flight poker player, unless your idea of happiness is exhaustion, stress, and high blood pressure. An obsessively competitive attitude can lead to several bad consequences. It can drain you of energy that is needed to accomplish more important objectives. It can make you look foolish for trying to compete fiercely in an activity into which you are not willing or able to put the necessary time and effort, or for which you do not possess much natural ability. It can cause enormous frustration, which in turn can adversely affect your attitude when it comes to facing more important challenges. Finally, an obsessively competitive attitude can cause strained relationships with people who might otherwise be valuable allies. The reality is that, regardless of how hard you try, you can't have all the candy in the store. If for no other reason than because neither you nor anyone else possesses enough time, energy, or talent to gain such a monopoly. This being the case, why frustrate yourself trying to win at everything? Leave some for the rest of us, because we're going to get our share whether you like it or not. That's because, collectively, we possess greater talent than you in many areas, or it may simply be because we're able to devote more time and energy than you to one area or another. Time is a fixed commodity that limits what you can accomplish during your lifetime. Thus, rather than helping you achieve happiness, the obsession to win at everything may only succeed in driving you mad. Is it moral? Is looking out for number one moral? As a preface to answering this all-important question, I should first describe the absolute moralist, a nemesis of all people of goodwill. The lifetime mission of the absolute moralist is to badger you into doing the right thing, as defined by him, of course. Like Satan, the absolute moralist disguises himself in a variety of human forms. He may make his appearance as a politician, an environmentalist, or even your next-door neighbor. Whatever his disguise, however, you can count on the absolute moralist to be relentless. He is the self-appointed guardian of the law. He's the guy who shakes his fist and honks his horn at you for a full block because you inadvertently moved into his lane without what he considered to be proper clearance. It is his moral duty to make certain you understand that you've committed a hideous crime. The absolute moralist will stalk you to your grave if you allow him to do so. If he senses you're a ripe target, that you do not base your actions on rational self-choice, he will punish you unmercifully, making guilt your bedfellow until he convinces you that you are a subpar human being. Above all, the absolute moralist is a human-like creature whose main focus in life is to decide what's right for you. If he gives to a certain charity, he will try to shame you into understanding that it's your moral duty to give to the same charity. If he believes in a religious doctrine, he is certain that it's his moral duty to help you see the light. In the most extreme cases, he may even feel morally obliged to kill you in order to save you from your disbelief. In summation, the main objective of an absolute moralist is to control your life. He does not understand that appealing to your needs is the best way to motivate you to add value to his life. The simplest way to get the absolute moralist to leave you alone is to make the firm decision not to allow him to impose his beliefs on you, because it is totally within your power to do so. I would suggest that in deciding whether or not it is moral to look out for number one, the first thing you should do is eliminate from consideration the unsolicited opinions of others. Morality, the quality of right and wrong, is a very personal and private matter. Thus, no one possesses the right to decide what is right or wrong for you. So long as your idea of right and wrong does not include committing aggression against others, and so long as it falls reasonably within the generally accepted code of conduct of the society in which you live, you have a right to pursue your happiness in any way you choose. I suggest that you make a prompt and thorough effort to eliminate from your life all people who claim, either through their words or actions, to possess the right to force you to abide by their notion of right and wrong. What it does not mean. While looking out for number one involves making decisions that result in more pleasure and less pain, it does not give you carte blanche to commit aggression against others. in addition to the obvious immorality of aggression, there is a rational reason why forcible interference in the lives of others has no place in the philosophy of looking out for number one. It simply is not in your best interest. In the long run, sticking your nose in other people's business will bring you more pain than pleasure, which is the opposite of what looking out for number one is all about. It is, of course, possible for someone to experience short-term pleasure by violating the rights of others, but the long-term losses from such actions are almost certain to more than offset the short-term pleasure experienced. Why? Because the bad cause, bad effect syndrome is a cosmic reality. Actions always beget appropriate consequences. A person must either abide by this universal law or be prepared to suffer the consequences. Why not? Perhaps the question, is it moral to look out for number one, can best be answered with another question. Can you think of any rational reason why you should not try to make your life more pleasurable and less painful, so long as your actions do not harm to anyone else? You have but one life to live. Is there anything unreasonable about nurturing that life and doing everything within your power to make it pleasant and fulfilling? Is there anything wrong with being aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it? Is it unreasonable to act out of free choice rather than the choice of others? It's noble to give top priority to the needs of loved ones because their happiness is often the greatest source of your happiness. But raw, indiscriminate self-sacrifice is another matter altogether. Actions based on the latter are usually committed under the influence of low awareness level. The truth is that, in the long run, such artificial altruism is likely to make you resentful over what you've forfeited as a result of your actions. While your intentions may be above reproach, it's a grave mistake to repeatedly and indiscriminately sacrifice your own well-being to the needs of everyone who happens to stumble into your life, or worse, people who aren't even in your life. The sad irony is that if you persist in swimming in the dangerous and uncivilized waters of self-sacrifice, those for whom you supposedly sacrifice will often be worse off for your efforts. If, instead, you focus your efforts on looking out for number one, those people you care about most will actually benefit from your actions because it will put you in a position to be far more helpful to them. It's only when you try to pervert the laws of nature and make everyone else's happiness your first responsibility that you run into trouble. The idea that self-sacrifice is virtuous is, in fact, a fiction created by those who aspire to control the lives of others. Think politicians. That looking out for number one brings happiness to others, in addition to being in your own best interest, is one of the greatest poetic justices of life. At best, looking out for number one benefits you and others. At worst, it benefits only you, but does no harm to anyone else. However, even the latter case, looking out for number one, is actually a benefit to others because when you're content and happy, you aren't a potential burden to the rest of society, which, in my opinion, is more than enough reason to view looking out for number one as a noble pursuit. As a bonus, when you practice the principles of looking out for number one, you will find it easier to develop rewarding relationships because happy people tend to be much more gracious, kind, compassionate, and charitable than those who are unhappy. Is it easy? If you're a mature adult, you already know that to accomplish anything worthwhile takes effort. Nevertheless, millions of people seem incapable of grasping this self-evident truth. Virtually everyone is familiar with Murphy's Law, but it's worth repeating. Nothing is as easy as it looks, Everything takes longer than you expect, and if anything can go wrong, it will, at the worst possible moment. One of the reasons Murphy's Law is timeless is the reality that nothing seems to stay in one place long enough to pin it down. Like a greased watermelon, just when you think you have it under control, it manages to slip from your grasp. This phenomenon is underscored by the changing circumstances theory, which states, the one thing in life you can absolutely count on is that circumstances will continually change. The great unknown is when they will change. That being the case, enjoy life, but be flexible in your planning. It's dangerous to base your decisions on the assumption that everything is going to continue as it now is. It won't. Worse, because circumstances have a habit of changing with little warning. You're often caught off guard. One day you're on top of the world financially. The next day you're staring bankruptcy in the face because of a competitor's new product or a bad economy. Today you look forward to getting to the office. Tomorrow you have a new supervisor you dislike. For years you've been accustomed to playing golf twice a week. Suddenly you have a back problem and your doctor says you should forget about golf and take up swimming. Relatives die, friends move away, buildings are torn down and replaced by new ones. Changing tastes catch a performer by surprise and make him into a has-been. An athlete discovers he doesn't fit in with the new coach's plan and is out of a job. A mid-level executive finds himself unemployed when his company closes down his division. Nothing lasts forever, and the individual who is not attuned to that reality is likely to be unnecessarily vulnerable to inevitable bumps in the road. He is constantly caught off balance and finds himself unprepared to make the rational decisions necessary to leading a happy, fulfilling life. On the other hand, the better you understand the reality that circumstances constantly change, the more likely you are to make rational decisions. Your best insurance policy in this regard is to be found in the old adage, you can't win 'em all. In fact, a more accurate perspective would be to say that you can't lose them all, because lose you will, and often. It's just the way life is. Losses are built into your life's equation by constant change and factors beyond your control. If you don't understand this reality, you're likely to end up with a shattered self-image and buckets of frustration following each failure. But if you acknowledge the reality that life has an annoying habit of not cooperating with your plans, your brain does not self-destruct whenever an obstacle arises. In addition, you will be far more likely to be prepared to take advantage of it when things finally do fall into place. Thus, even though you accept the reality that life is fraught with adversity, you do more than just hope for the best. You prepare for it. While enduring life's bumps and bruises in a daily stream of lost battles, each time you stumble, you should make it a point to extract the lesson learned and use your newfound knowledge to be better prepared the next time around. The bad experience is history, so let go of it. Instead, focus on the knowledge you've gained, because that knowledge can prove to be far more valuable than the fruits of victory. The following anecdote from David Seabury does an excellent job of making this point. In South Africa, they dig for diamonds. Tons of earth are moved to find a little pebble not as large as a little fingernail. The miners are looking for the diamonds, not the dirt. They are willing to lift all the dirt in order to find the jewels. In daily life, people forget this principle and become pessimists because there is more dirt than diamonds. When trouble comes, don't be frightened by the negatives. Look for the positives and dig them out. They are so valuable, it doesn't matter if you have to handle tons of dirt. Understanding that adversity and obstacles are an integral part of life will make it far easier for you to move the dirt between you and your diamonds. It's all part of the price you pay for success. You are much ahead of the game if you accept the reality that everything in life has a price. That includes love, friendship, financial reward, peace of mind, the freedom to come and go as you please. Anything that adds pleasure to your existence. If you delude yourself into believing otherwise, you will repeatedly learn the hard way that actions do indeed have consequences. This principle is so important to me that I've developed the habit of consciously trying to ascertain in advance the price of anything I desire, whether the required payment be in time, money, energy, discomfort, or any other form of currency. I try not to kid myself about it. And once I've made up my mind that something is worth the price, I like to pay that price as quickly as possible and get it over with. The sooner the payment is out of the way, the sooner you can get out with enjoying what you've acquired. What I'm talking about here is long-term solutions versus short-term patching. Dispense with the rationalization that you can temporarily resolve a problem just to get past a rough spot in your path, with the intention of working out a more permanent solution at some unspecified future date. Such a date has a habit of never arriving, and as a result, the problem only festers and grows. You can't buy happiness on an installment plan. Begin paying the price today so you can start enjoying the benefits as soon as possible, and rest assured that no one is going to make the payments for you. In the coming pages, the ball will be in your court. I wish I could be the bearer of good tidings and tell you that you have unlimited time to stare at the ball and decide what you're going to do with it. But that's not reality. Like all games, the game of life must end, and the clock is ticking as you read this. How much time? No one knows for certain, but the average lifespan is roughly 80 years. So it's wise to look at anything beyond the number as a windfall. As an example, the moment you turn 25, and assuming you will live to the age of 80, you have precisely 20,075 days left on this earth, or about 2,867 weeks. That's 660 months. Choose the lifespan that makes you feel most comfortable when doing your calculations, but never lose sight of the fact that the clock is ticking. End of chapter. All right, my dear one, leave me a comment. Let me know you were here. If you like what you see here or what you hear, please do subscribe. And if you know of anyone that can benefit from this book and this information, be so kind, share it with them. Join me at the next video where we continue on to the next chapter of the book titled Looking Out for Number One. Yes, that's you, right? All right, see you there.